If you had told me that a deflated basement mattress could literally destabilize a multi-million-dollar business empire, like just completely expose the fragile ego of modern marriage and result in the actual deep frying of breakfast meat, I would have assumed we were talking about, I don't know, a Shakespearean tragedy set in a Waffle House.
Which is a brilliant concept, by the way. But no, we are just talking about this week's getaway on Belle Collective.
Right, and I am still, honestly, I'm still trying to process the visceral, chaotic energy of it all. It was just so much.
It is a fascinating study in how quickly social contracts just disintegrate under pressure. I mean, we are watching structural, marital, and culinary collapse happen in real time.
Total collapse.
Yeah, and it's all triggered by a piece of furniture that belongs in a college dorm, not a luxury rental. I mean, it is just an ego defense mechanism wrapped in the guise of bad hospitality.
Oh, completely.
Really?
Babes, welcome back. We love you. We see you. And honestly, every time we think we've got adulthood figured out, life sends us another calendar invite.
Oh, the dreaded calendar invite. But we are thrilled to have the Snark Squad settling in with us for this conversation. Tonight, we are sipping on sweet peach bourbon lemonades.
Yes, we are. So good.
It just felt like the only appropriate beverage to match the specific flavor of Southern glam, high-stakes reality TV madness that we are unpacking today.
Cheers to that. Let's raise a glass to you, the Snark Squad, and just celebrate making it through another demanding week of adulthood. Like, we survived the emails.
Seriously.
We survived the obligations, and now we get to channel all of our lingering stress into deeply analytical commentary about other people's life choices.
A highly effective coping mechanism, if you ask me. Cheers to survival and, well, impeccable judgment.
Always. Okay, so before we even touch the sheer disrespect of that Atlanta trip, we have to unpack the underlying concept that drove the entire conflict.
Hospitality rules.
Right, the rigid standards of Southern hospitality. Because watching this, it triggered my hosting anxiety on a cellular level. So we are putting ourselves on the hot seat. It's time for the Southern hospitality test.
Oh boy, I am ready.
Question number 1. Could you host a dinner party for 20 people tomorrow?
Absolutely not. That is not a dinner party. That is a zoning violation. The answer is a categorical no.
Huh? A zoning violation.
I mean, do you realize the sheer number of variables involved in managing 20 different digestive tracts, dietary restrictions, and just intersecting social neuroses?
It's a lot of neuroses.
It's terrifying. The plumbing risks alone of 20 people using a residential bathroom system? No. I would lock the doors, turn off the porch light, and pretend I relocated to a different tax bracket.
See, this is where my delusional optimism just completely betrays me. I always think I can pull off the effortless Ina Garten-style gathering, you know.
Delusional is the right word?
I would totally say yes. I would send out a gorgeous digital invite, and then by 4 p.m. tomorrow, my emotional regulation would completely flatline.
Now,
I would be sitting on the floor of my pantry, clutching a bag of tortilla chips, questioning my own intrinsic worth because the napkins don't match the centerpieces. It's just the pressure to perform perfection is suffocating.
which perfectly illustrates the premise of question 2. If you are cornered into this scenario, would you rather cook the meal or hire a caterer?
Oh, that's tough.
Because if you attempt to cook for 20 people, you are orchestrating your own pantry breakdown. I am hiring a caterer without a second thought.
Really? You wouldn't even try?
Why would I? Whether it is brunch, a cocktail hour, or a formal dinner, any gathering of adults is essentially a networking event disguised as leisure.
I mean, I guess, but...
You cannot properly observe the social dynamics, gauge the temperature of the room, or subtly direct the conversation if you are in the kitchen furiously trying to emulsify a vinaigrette.
I understand the logic, I really do, but I just crave the emotional payoff. I want that heartfelt cinematic moment, you know.
You want to be on a cooking show.
I want to pull a perfectly browned roast out of the oven, wearing a chic, slightly dusted apron, while everyone gasps and feels the tangible love that went into the food. Like, cooking for someone feels like such a vulnerable, nurturing act to me.
Nurturing. You don't want to nurture them. You want the validation of their applause.
Okay, yes, I want the validation. I want them to look at me and think I am a fully realized, competent human being.
At least you admit it.
But you make a fair point. In reality, I end up sweating through my silk blouse, smelling distinctly of caramelized onions, and missing all the crucial gossip happening in the living room. So,
Yeah, exactly. Let the professionals handle the onions.
okay, question 3. What is the one thing guests would always find in your house?
A locked bedroom door.
You cannot be serious.
I have never been more serious in my life. Boundaries are the foundation of actual hospitality.
A locked door is hospitable.
Yes. You are welcome to enjoy the living room, the dining room, and the meticulously stocked guest bathroom. But my sanctuary, the primary suite, that is a highly restricted area.
Oh my gosh.
People are inherently nosy. They are snoops. I do not need anyone assessing the thread count of my duvet or analyzing the specific combination of prescription skincare I am hiding on my nightstand.
That is so cynical. When I think of hospitality, I think of total comfort.
Comfort for whom?
For the guest. If guests come to my house, they will always find perfectly folded, incredibly plush guest towels. It is my love language. I want someone to step out of the shower and feel like they have been transported to a 5-star spa resort.
Well, aren't we fancy?
I even tie a little satin ribbon around them. To me, a plush towel communicates like, I care about your experience, and also please acknowledge that I have my life together.
See, to me, it communicates, please look at this ribbon so you don't notice the baseboards haven't been dusted since the winter solstice.
We are just choosing violence today, I see.
It's just being honest.
Fine. Let's move to the last question, which I feel very passionately about. What is the one household chore you secretly resent with your entire being?
Emptying the dishwasher. It is a deeply insulting chore. Yes. You already performed the labor of rinsing, organizing, and loading the machine. You ran the cycle. And now, as a reward for your cleanliness, you have to play a high-stakes game of spatial reasoning, returning every individual plate and glass to its designated cabinet.
It never ends.
It feels like a cyclical punishment.
Okay, for me, it is matching socks. It just feels like a poignant metaphor for the futility of human existence.
Wow. We are getting deep.
It is. You start with a hopeful pile of laundry, and no matter how diligent you are, you inevitably end up with 3 solitary socks that have lost their partners to the void.
The dryer void.
Yes. It is emotionally taxing to throw away a perfectly good sock just because it is suddenly alone in the world.
You have a remarkable talent for turning a rogue garment into an existential crisis.
It's all part of the delusions we construct to feel like we are functioning adults, okay? Like, if I can just match these socks, the chaos of my daily life will finally make sense.
Spoiler alert, it never does.
Never. And speaking of clinging to irrational beliefs, that brings us to the petty hill we'll die on. We are taking 3 completely unserious opinions and defending them with the emotional intensity of a courtroom drama.
I am so ready.
Opinion number 1. Brunch is unequivocally better than dinner.
I will defend this position tirelessly. Brunch is the superior culinary institution. Period.
Over dinner. No way.
Yes. It occupies a liminal space in the day where it is socially acceptable to consume champagne at 11 in the morning. The menus are a flawless hybrid of sweet and savory.
I mean, the food is good, but
most importantly, brunch features a built-in exit strategy. By 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the check is settled, the necessary social capital has been exchanged, and you still possess your entire afternoon to decompress. Dinner is a trap.
It
Drags late into the evening, you are fighting cognitive fatigue, and the social stakes are exponentially higher.
I hear the efficiency in your argument, but you are entirely missing the magic. Dinner is where actual connection occurs.
Magic doesn't pay the bills.
But it's about the lighting. The dim ambiance, the flickering candles, the richness of a Cabernet. That environment naturally lowers people's psychological defenses.
If you say so.
You cannot have a soul-bearing, emotionally resonant conversation when the midday sun is glaring through a plate glass window and the table next to you is aggressively debating the merits of avocado toast.
Yeah.
Brunch is for networking. Dinner is for intimacy.
Well, I am perfectly content trading intimacy for a flawless hollandaise sauce and a predictable bedtime.
We are fundamentally different people. Let's see if we align on opinion 2. Voice notes over 2 minutes should be illegal.
I am fiercely in agreement with this. If you send me an audio file that exceeds 120 seconds, you are holding my time hostage.
Yes, absolutely hostage.
You have essentially assigned me a personalized podcast that I did not voluntarily subscribe to, and you are demanding I listen to it on your schedule.
It feels like an act of emotional terrorism. I have friends who send these meandering 5-minute vocal
Well,
journeys.
it's the absolute worst.
Half the recording is just them breathing heavily, walking their dog, pausing to order a coffee, and saying, wait, what was my point?
Unacceptable.
Just call me. Or, better yet, distill your thoughts into 3 concise bullet points via text. I cannot scrub through an audio waveform trying to locate the actual narrative plot.
Right, because it is a fundamentally asymmetrical form of communication. It prioritizes the sender's convenience, allowing them to offload their unfiltered stream of consciousness, while completely disregarding the receiver's bandwidth.
Yes, exactly.
A text message requires editing, forethought, and intent. A 5-minute voice note is just unedited mental clutter.
Completely aligned. We're bonded in our hatred of long voice notes. Okay, final petty hill. Every group trip requires one overly organized friend.
Oh, I strongly disagree with where I think you're going with this.
Wait, I will take the lead here. I deeply, profoundly appreciate the mom friend of the group vacation.
Of course you do.
I do. The one who creates the shared itinerary, who secures the dinner reservations 3 months in advance, and who knows exactly what time the airport shuttle departs.
Sounds exhausting.
Their labor allows the rest of us to simply float through the experience and be present in the joy. Without that anchor, the group would inevitably end up eating stale crackers at a gas station at midnight because no one wanted to take the social risk of choosing a restaurant.
See, I view the overly organized friend through a much darker lens. I believe they are often benevolent dictators.
What? How can you say that about the person doing all the work?
Because the spreadsheet is a mechanism of control. They use the itinerary to dictate the flow of the fun, ensuring their preferences take priority under the guise of group efficiency.
Oh, come on. They just want everyone to have a good time.
Oh, and while you are blissfully floating in the joy, they are silently calculating every time you were 5 minutes late to the hotel lobby. They are building a deep, subterranean reservoir of resentment that will inevitably rupture at baggage claim. The color-coded itinerary is just a ledger of your failures.
That is the most traumatic interpretation of a Google Doc I have ever been subjected to. You are projecting some deep vacation wounds right now.
I simply prefer an itinerary that serves as a gentle suggestion rather than a legally binding contract.
Okay, before we spiral completely into our own psychological baggage, let's ground the conversation. We need to celebrate the little victories before we jump into the absolute wreckage of the Belle collective getaway. It is time for our win of the week.
Let's hear it.
So I had a really beautiful moment this week that I'm still holding on to. I was dealing with a massive wave of imposter syndrome.
Oh, I hate that feeling.
Right. Just that heavy, suffocating feeling that you are entirely unqualified for your own life. And a dear friend of mine, someone I am so intensely grateful for, sensed it.
That's a good friend.
She didn't text asking what was wrong. She just showed up at my door with a coffee, and we sat on my porch for 20 minutes. She didn't try to intellectualize my stress or offer actionable solutions. She just held the space.
Sometimes that's all you need.
Exactly. It was such a vivid reminder of the power of genuine sisterhood. When you drop the performance and just let someone see you struggle, it changes the entire trajectory of your week.
That is a genuinely lovely testament to emotional support.
What about you? What's your win?
My win of the week leans slightly more towards strategic boundary enforcement.
Oh, it's sure good.
I received an email that was a masterclass in toxic, passive-aggressive corporate speak. The sender was clearly fishing for an emotional reaction. They wanted to trigger a fire drill and drag me into their artificial urgency.
Ugh, the absolute worst kind of email.
Indeed. But instead of taking the bait, I let the email sit untouched in my inbox for a full 48 hours.
The power.
I watched it lose its power. When I finally replied, it was a beautifully detached, surgically precise 2-sentence response that began with, "Per my last email." It was a profound triumph of emotional regulation.
I am simultaneously terrified of your restraint and incredibly proud of you. That is real growth. But, babes, enough about our own southern delusions. Let's head to Belle Collective, where ambition is high, friendships are complicated, and somebody is definitely about to stir the pot.
And, oh, did this stir it? The trip in question is Season 8, Episode 7, Appalling.
Such a good title.
Very fitting. The setting is Atlanta, and the premise is supposed to be an opulent, celebratory getaway honoring Selena and Mike's impending wedding.
And the aesthetics of the arrival. Flawless.
Oh, absolutely stunning.
The collective pulls up to this stunning multi-level Airbnb in Atlanta. The energy is pure, bad, and bougie. The architecture is gorgeous, everyone is dressed to the nines, and they are greeted right at the grand entrance.
But then Leticia steps up.
Yes. Leticia, acting as the primary host and organizer alongside Glenn, immediately shifts the power dynamic. Before anyone even sets down a suitcase, she announces that the room assignments are predetermined.
No free-for-all.
Exactly. There will be no scrambling, no claims staked. Your name is already on a door.
Which, tying directly back to our discussion on hospitality, is a brilliant exertion of control. Leticia and Cliff lay claim to the primary master suite, undeniably the most luxurious room in the property.
Right.
We have to analyze the optics of this decision. Selena is the bride-to-be. This entire excursion is theoretically designed to celebrate her transition into marriage. Yet, Latrice bypasses the guest of honor, leveraging her role as the logistical planner to secure the premium real estate for herself.
I mean, I always thought Southern hospitality was rooted in deference, the idea that you sacrifice your own comfort to make the guests feel like royalty. Watching Latrice operate made me rethink that entire dynamic.
It's all about power.
Does the person who coordinates the spreadsheet, communicates with the property manager, and fronts the organizational energy deserve the return on investment of the best room?
That's the question, isn't it?
Selena certainly didn't think so. She clocked it immediately, noting, "You are not the bride-to-be, honey."
It highlights the tension between traditional etiquette and modern sweat equity. Latrice feels her labor entitles her to the spoils, but frankly, the master suite acquisition is merely a footnote compared to the calculated strike she launched against Carrie and Matt.
Oh my gosh, the descent into the basement. I felt a physical knot in my stomach watching this unfold.
It was brutal.
The other women are finding these beautifully appointed, spacious rooms on the upper floors. Tambra has a gorgeous setup. Leticia and Glenn are situated comfortably near Marie. And then we follow Carrie as she searches for her name placard.
Down, down, down.
She has to leave the main living areas and descend into what she accurately described as the bowels of the home.
To discover a room that stretches the definition of the word bedroom to its absolute breaking point.
It wasn't even a room.
It is a cramped subterranean space featuring a transparent glass door, offering zero privacy from whoever might wander down there. And the centerpiece is not a king-size mattress, but a deflated pull-out sofa.
A pull-out couch.
A let-out couch, assigned to a married couple in their 40s. Let that sink in.
Carrie's reaction was poetry. She stood in that tiny space and asked, "What is this cottage, little FEMA trailer?"
A FEMA trailer?
She noted it was genuinely smaller than her master closet back in Jackson, Mississippi. And the brutal truth is, she wasn't exaggerating for the cameras. It was a visceral insult. It communicated a complete lack of regard for her status within the group.
We cannot view this room assignment in a vacuum. This was an orchestrated, premeditated act of retaliation.
You think so?
Absolutely. If we trace the lineage of this conflict, it points directly back to the Gulf Coast trip. Carrie organized that particular excursion, and during that trip, she assigned Latrice and Leticia to sleep in literal bunk beds.
Oh, I forgot about the bunk beds.
Latrice did not forget. She has clearly harbored that resentment, quietly waiting for the architectural opportunity to balance the scales. She weaponized the floor plan of this Atlanta rental to put Carrie in her perceived place.
It is the epitome of playing the long game just to be petty. But what fascinates me is Carrie's initial response. She doesn't storm out. She tries to manage the humiliation.
She tries to play it cool.
She immediately calls Matt, who is currently enduring a 6.5-hour solo drive from Mississippi to Atlanta because he couldn't align his schedule with the group flight. She warns him that they have been strategically undermined.
When Matt finally arrives after navigating half a day of interstate traffic, his reaction is a masterclass in boundary enforcement.
Yes, it was.
He assesses the transparent door, the thin mattress, and the sheer disrespect of the setup, and he immediately calculates his leverage. He vocalizes that he brought his own vehicle, he possesses his own financial resources, and most importantly, he holds titanium platinum status with Marriott.
The Marriott points.
Ah!
I died.
He refuses to participate in his own degradation. Grown adults, professionals with mortgages and established lives should not be coerced into sleeping on temporary furniture steeped in, as he so eloquently phrased it, booty sweat, just to appease a reality television ensemble.
The phrase booty sweat will haunt me forever.
It recognizes a casualty-producing situation and formally declines to be the casualty.
I feel a profound wave of sympathy for Carrie in this specific moment because she is caught in a torturous middle ground. She desperately wants to project the image of a team player. She wants to maintain her footing within the collective.
But at what cost?
Right. But in doing so, she allows Latrice to completely play in her face. She stands in that basement, absorbing the thinly veiled mockery of the other women, and chooses to internalize the embarrassment rather than challenge the host.
Precisely. She redirects her frustration. Instead of confronting the architect of her humiliation, Latrice, she begins a slow burn campaign of resentment against her husband, who is the only person actually advocating for their dignity.
While Carrie and Matt are negotiating the terms of their suffering in the basement, the contrast upstairs is jarring. The rest of the women are partaking in this wildly opulent, preemptive wellness ritual.
Oh, the Ibis.
They have hired a concierge medical service to administer a fee vitamin drips right in the living room.
It is the zenith of performative reality television wellness. They are actively consuming champagne while simultaneously having electrolytes and vitamins intravenously pumped into their bloodstreams to mitigate the anticipated hangover.
It's so chaotic.
It is treating a self-inflicted wound before the injury even occurs.
Carrie declines to participate. She states she has ingested enough vitamins and simply desires a hot shower and some pajamas. It felt so incredibly relatable.
Very grounded.
When you have been profoundly disrespected by your peers, you don't want a saline drip to rehydrate you. You want the basic comfort of washing the day off and retreating. It highlights how out of sync she feels with the group's performance of luxury, while she is literally relegated to the servants' quarters.
That dissonance seamlessly bleeds into the evening's events. The dynamic in the basement perfectly sets the stage for the tension we witnessed during the dinner service. Latrice, continuing her role as the grand orchestrator, has secured a private chef to prepare a multi-course culinary experience honoring Mike and Selena.
And it looked amazing.
The table is impeccably set, the ambiance is curated, and the collective gathers, with one glaring exception.
Leticia is missing. The chef has the food perfectly timed, the plates are hot, and Leticia is upstairs because she hired an Atlanta-based makeup artist to execute a full glam session for a dinner taking place in the dining room of her own rental house.
And so begins the agonizing waiting game. The clash here is fundamentally about competing values. Latrice makes the executive decision to commence the meal without Leticia and Glenn.
Which I get.
When Glenn finally descends, he is visibly appalled. He lectures the table on etiquette, insisting that they lack class and that true manners dictate you do not break bread until the entire collective is seated.
Glenn is operating on very traditional old-school Southern rules of engagement. You wait for the family. But in this scenario, I found myself conflicted. I mean, I empathize with Leticia missing the opening toast and that crucial moment of collective bonding, but you cannot hold the table of 20 hungry adults hostage because your contour requires another 15 minutes of blending.
I unequivocally side with the group over Glenn in this instance. You do not disrespect the labor and precision of a private chef by allowing carefully temperature-controlled food to congeal because someone prioritizes their Instagram aesthetics over punctuality.
This is rude to the chef, yeah.
The chef's time is a commodity. The integrity of the meal is paramount. If you consciously choose to allocate your time to a makeup chair rather than the scheduled itinerary, you forfeit the right to demand that everyone else's blood sugar plummets in solidarity with your vanity.
The prioritization of optics over consideration is such a recurring theme. But in the midst of this tension over the timeline, we are gifted one of the most subtly brilliant moments of the season courtesy of Marie.
Oh, this was fantastic.
The chef presents an exquisite, beautifully plated salad course. Marie looks at it, flatly rejects the leafy greens, and politely inquires if she can substitute her salad for a cold Coca-Cola.
It is a breathtaking rejection of the wellness industrial complex that dominates so much of reality television.
It was incredible. The other women were so flummoxed. They are gently prodding her to incorporate some roughage into her diet, joking that her circulatory system is primarily composed of carbonation and high-fructose corn syrup.
And she did not care.
But Marie is unbothered. She is fiercely protective of her specific Southern comfort diet. She avoids vegetables with the dedication of a professional athlete.
What makes it compelling is the sheer autonomy of the act. Reality stars are under immense pressure to constantly perform health, vitality, and wealth through their food choices. A microgreen salad is a status symbol.
Right, it's an aesthetic.
Marie looks at that status symbol, identifies that it brings her zero joy, and confidently requests a mass-market soda at a high-end private dinner. She completely shifts the social capital. She isn't embarrassed by her preferences, she owns them, which makes everyone else's judgment bounce right off her.
She truly knows exactly who she is. Eventually, Leticia makes her grand entrance, looking undeniably stunning. The conversation at the table naturally drifts towards Selena and Mike, with the group offering a barrage of unsolicited marital advice.
As groups always do.
Since both Selena and Mike have navigated divorce previously, the stakes this upcoming union are a major talking point. Selena handles the influx of opinions with such grace, merely smiling and absorbing the energy. But then, Leticia seizes the floor.
Oh yes, here we go.
Not to advise Selena, but to deliver a highly public, effusive tribute to Glenn. She praises his character, labeling him a provider, a protector, and an exemplary father.
The whiplash of that moment is profound. To comprehend the gravity of Leticia's public praise, we have to unpack the deep psychological and financial trenches their marriage has been stuck in for the past several episodes.
It's been rough.
This wasn't just a wife complimenting a husband, it was a desperate attempt at a ceasefire.
Do I have to talk about the post-nuptial agreement?
Yeah.
It has been this oppressive dark cloud suffocating their interactions. Leticia is building a legitimate empire.
A very successful one.
Her financial advisor, looking at the trajectory of her business and the realities of asset liability, strongly counseled her to execute a postnup. It is a protective measure to ensure that her business, the very entity that sustains their lifestyle, is legally insulated from any potential marital fallout.
From a purely analytical standpoint, it is a standard, rational mechanism of wealth management for a CEO. But we are not dealing with rational business mechanics. We are dealing with fragile masculine ego. How did Glenn process this request?
He internalized it as a devastating personal attack. He viewed the legal document not as a shield for their shared future, but as a direct indictment of his role as the head of the household.
Completely illogical.
He felt emasculated. He outright refused to entertain the idea, stating his pride wouldn't permit it, and he escalated the conflict to the absolute nuclear threshold. He told Leticia he would rather proceed with a divorce than affix his signature to that postnup.
It is a stunning display of prioritizing ego over stability. He was willing to detonate the marriage rather than concede an inch of his perceived authority, and his retaliation tactics were deeply unsettling.
So unsettling.
Instead of continuing the dialogue, Glenn engaged in asymmetrical warfare. He secretly retained his own legal counsel to assess his asset positioning and explore his options should the marriage dissolve.
Behind her back.
He operated completely in the shadows until Selena uncovered the maneuvering and exposed it to the entire collective, leaving Leticia totally blindsided.
Watching Leticia confront him about that secret attorney meeting was gut-wrenching. She was raw, asking him point blank if she needed to start checking the mail for divorce papers. It exposed how fundamentally insecure their foundation had become.
It really did.
So when we fast forward to this dinner in Atlanta, and Leticia stands up in front of their peers to loudly validate Glenn's manhood and his role as a protector, she is throwing him a massive emotional lifeline. She is publicly stroking the exact ego that the postnup bruised. And you could see it work. Glenn was visibly moved. He admitted it offered him a glimmer of hope.
It was a strategic, highly effective de-escalation. However, the emotional regulation displayed by Leticia and Glenn was entirely absent at the other end of the table.
Oh boy.
Because while one marriage is attempting a fragile reconstruction, Matt is actively taking a sledgehammer to the structural integrity of his own.
Matt decides that the middle of a celebratory dinner is the optimal time to make a public service announcement. He informs the table that he has officially secured a room at a nearby hotel. He is vacating the premises.
Drop the mic.
And he delivers the fatal blow by plainly stating that he is executing this exit strategy regardless of whether Carrie chooses to accompany him or remain in the basement.
He draws a hard boundary, but he does so by essentially abandoning his wife to the judgment of the collective.
The look on Carrie's face, it was an agonizing mixture of fury and total mortification. Imagine the sheer humiliation of your partner announcing to a room full of your professional and social peers that the accommodations are so beneath him that he's leaving you behind to deal with the fallout.
It's a lot.
But this circles back to my earlier confusion. Why is Carrie directing all of her venom at Matt for simply desiring a mattress that doesn't fold in half, rather than aiming her justified anger at Latrice, the architect of this entire humiliating scenario?
It is a classic sociological response to power dynamics. Carrie is employing displaced aggression. Confronting Latrice requires challenging the apex predator of the group's current hierarchy.
That makes sense.
Latrice holds the logistical keys. She organized the trip. She commands the primary suite. Carrie is already feeling insecure about her standing within the collective, so she avoids alienating the group further. Matt, on the other hand, is a safe target.
Because he's her husband.
He is contractually bound to her. She redirects all of her humiliation and rage onto him, harboring the irrational expectation that he should silently endure the physical discomfort to protect her fragile social capital.
That breakdown makes perfect tragic sense. She needs a punching bag, and he is the closest one available. This tension propels us into the night's festivities. The collective, sans Matt, who is presumably joyfully checking into a property with a recognizable loyalty program.
Do for him.
They head to Club V12, one of Atlanta's premier nightlife spots, to celebrate the impending nuptials.
And they are immediately greeted by a grand spectacle orchestrated by Vinny, the club owner.
It was such a visually overwhelming, beautiful gesture. The group enters the club, the music is vibrating through the floor, the bottle service sparklers are lighting up the room, and there were these massive, oversized cardboard cutouts of Selena and Mike's faces floating through the VIP section.
It was very extra.
It was high camp in the best way. The women take turns circling the room, delivering these poignant, uplifting affirmations to Selena. It was a brief, shining moment where the petty squabbles evaporated and you witnessed the genuine sisterhood that justifies the existence of this collective.
It was nice to see.
They rallied around a woman who has endured a highly stressful planning process and just let her bask in being celebrated.
It was a highly successful, albeit temporary, deflection from the underlying toxicity permeating the group. But not every member possessed the emotional compartmentalization required to participate in the joy.
Poor Carrie.
While the collective is popping corks and offering toasts, Carrie is physically isolating herself, vibrating with resentment in the corner of the VIP booth.
She is utterly consumed by her own misery. She pulls Tamara aside and launches into this bitter monologue, complaining that Matt is acting bougie and declaring that she vehemently refuses to even sit adjacent to him on the transport back to Mississippi.
So dramatic.
She is framing Matt's desire for a standard hotel bed as a profound character flaw and a personal betrayal.
The irony is so thick it is practically opaque. Matt is actively utilizing his own resources, his money, his accrued points to secure a luxurious environment for his wife. He is trying to elevate their circumstance.
He really was trying to help.
And Carrie is fighting him with a ferocity bordering on the irrational, just so she can return to a subterranean cot and claim the title of a martyr. She is willing to sacrifice the peace of her marriage on the altar of group approval, failing to recognize that the group does not respect her enough to allocate her a bedroom with opaque walls.
It is devastating to watch someone fight so hard for the approval of people who put them in a closet. The juxtaposition of the couples that evening is truly cinematic, because while Carrie is spiraling over her marriage in a crowded nightclub, Leticia and Glenn make a vastly different choice back at the house.
The very wise choice.
Instead of participating in the late-night revelry, they elect to retire early to their room, which, it should be noted, is a perfectly lovely standard bedroom on an upper floor.
And what transpires behind that closed door is one of the most mature, productive dialogues we have witnessed on this series. Leticia changes into lingerie, altering the energy from combative to intimate, and they engage in a radically honest conversation.
It was so refreshing. They both strip away the posturing. They collectively acknowledge that they allowed their pride to hijack their communication.
Yeah.
They admit that weaponizing the word divorce in every disagreement was toxic and damaging to their foundation.
Finally, some self-awareness.
Leticia very clearly articulates her trigger. She explains that when Glenn leans into his authority as the husband to unilaterally dictate terms, it shuts her down. She just wants him to communicate as an equal partner. And remarkably, Glenn actually absorbs the feedback without instantly deploying a defense mechanism.
But we cannot analyze this breakthrough without acknowledging the off-camera catalyst that made it possible. This moment of vulnerability did not spontaneously generate in a vacuum. It was the direct engineered result of Latrice's behind-the-scenes husband swap mediation.
Yes, the tactical brilliance of Latrice. Prior to the trip, she orchestrated a switch. She sat down for a one-on-one with Clem, while Leticia had a parallel conversation with Cliff.
It was a very smart move.
Latrice acted as an emotional translator. She held a very firm, clear mirror up to Glenn's behavior, explaining how his rigid stance on the postnup was damaging his wife. She took Leticia's exact pain points and delivered them in a frequency that Glenn could finally hear without his ego instantly blocking the signal.
It is a deeply fascinating psychological maneuver. In long-term relationships, spouses often build up dense layers of scar tissue around specific arguments. The message gets lost in the history of how the message has been delivered in the past.
Exactly. You just stop hearing each other.
But when a neutral third party, or in this instance, a respected peer within the collective, presents the identical information, it bypasses that scar tissue. The ego defenses remain dormant. Latrice, acting as a surrogate communicator, essentially saved Leticia's marriage from the brink of legal dissolution.
It was a beautiful display of how your friends can sometimes save you from yourself. Sadly, that restorative energy was strictly confined to the upper floors.
Oh, of course.
Because the next morning dawns, the cameras pan down to the basement, and who do we see slowly rising from the depths of that deflated pull-out couch?
Matt. He capitulated.
He didn't go to the Marriott. He stayed in the FEMA trailer with Carrie.
I cannot adequately express the depth of my disappointment in Matt's failure of resolve in this moment. He possessed the vehicle, he held the keys, he delivered a decisive public declaration of boundaries at the dinner table. And then, when the pressure mounted, he folded.
He completely folded.
He allowed Carrie to badger, guilt, and manipulate him into enduring an environment where they were both openly disrespected.
I understand why you are frustrated with him, but looking at it through the lens of exhaustion, I kind of empathize. Sometimes the fight just drains you. He just wanted the relentless arguing to cease. He traded his physical comfort for temporary auditory peace.
But capitulating to an irrational tantrum does not purchase peace. It merely finances delayed warfare. By staying on that couch, he validated Carrie's distorted belief that they must suffer to appease the collective.
That's true.
He betrayed his own explicitly stated boundary. When you abandon your own boundaries to pacify a partner's anxiety, you breed a toxic, slow-leaking resentment. And as we see unfold in the morning light, that resentment does not stay hidden for long.
Which brings us to the most chaotic breakfast sequence in recent television history. The breakfast blow-up and the deep-fried sausage incident. It is the morning after the club. The collective is sluggish. Leticia has been assigned the duty of preparing a large group breakfast.
A logistical undertaking for which past evidence proves she is wildly unqualified.
We observe her standing at the kitchen island, and she picks up a massive, industrial-sized jug of cooking oil. She proceeds to pour a horrifying, excessive volume of this oil into a large skillet. And what is she preparing to submerge into this bubbling vat of fat? Sausage patties.
She is attempting to deep-fry breakfast sausage. Let that process.
Selena wanders into the kitchen, takes one glance at the culinary crime scene, and her eyes practically bug out of her head. She immediately intervenes, shouting, "Girl, why are you frying sausage and cooking oil?" Sausage makes its own grease.
Basic culinary science.
Selena literally physically displaces Leticia from the stove, banishing her from the cooking area to take over pancake duty and save the morning meal.
It is a staggering display of domestic incompetence. However, it perfectly tracks with Leticia's documented history of culinary atrocities on this program. We must never forget the incident of the light-skinned dry wings or the absolute unmitigated disaster of serving canned glory greens at a formal dinner gathering.
The canned greens were a tragedy.
You do not deep-fry pork sausage. It reveals a fundamental lack of understanding regarding how animal fat renders. It is performative domesticity gone horribly wrong.
It was providing incredible comic relief. But the levity is instantly shattered the moment Matt and Carrie enter the kitchen airspace. The visual of Matt is striking. He is visibly radiating misery. He looks physically depleted, grumpier than we have ever seen him, and just completely checked out.
Because he spent the night contorted on a spring-loaded torture device after navigating cross-country traffic.
Exactly. And Carrie, rather than expressing a modicum of gratitude that her husband abandoned his own comfort to stay in the trenches with her, immediately begins to verbally assault him in front of the entire kitchen audience.
Which is just so toxic.
It felt incredibly performative, like she was trying to prove to the group that she wasn't aligned with his complaints. She calls him a Karen. She mocks him as a Christian martyr. She dismisses him as just being a hater. She is relentlessly, methodically poking a bear that is already backed into a corner.
Matt's restraint is notable. He doesn't raise his voice to match her hysteria. He quietly, sharply fires back with measured responses. But his entire physical presence is saturated with contempt for the situation and, frankly, for her behavior.
Okay, here's where I have to introduce a massive dose of context, because I cannot let you lay the blame entirely at Carrie's feet. Her meltdown in this kitchen is not just about a mattress. It is fueled by an intense, off-campus psychological burden involving Matt's mother, Marlene.
Ah, the classic mother-in-law triangulation.
It is severe triangulation.
Yeah.
Marlene has been consistently obliterating boundaries back in Mississippi. She has been actively pressuring Carrie, telling her she needs to abandon her high-stress career and pivot to staying home.
So inappropriate.
Even more damaging, Marlene and Matt have been conducting secret, private meetings regarding family property and assets, deliberately excluding Carrie from the conversations.
That's a huge red flag.
When Carrie confronted Matt about his mother aggressively getting in her face, Matt chose silence. He opted to play the neutral, passive peacekeeper, refusing to intervene or defend his wife. That abdication of partnership has left Carrie feeling profoundly isolated and entirely unsupported in her own marriage.
So if we apply the concept of localized pressure systems, Carrie is utterly powerless to control the macro storm of Marlene's interference back home, so she creates a microstorm she can control here in Atlanta, aggressively berating her husband over a hotel dispute. She is displacing years of marital grievance onto a temporary housing inconvenience.
Yes. The pressure cooker finally hits its critical limit right there next to the pancake batter. The argument escalates. Carrie realizes she is losing the narrative, and she bursts into tears, storming out of the kitchen in a full emotional rupture.
And in a twist of profound irony, the person who follows her out to offer comfort is Latrice, the very architect who designed the basement trap that triggered the collapse.
Latrice finds Carrie sobbing in another room, and the dam finally breaks. Carrie looks at Latrice and plainly admits, "I have displaced anger." And then she lays out the actual terrifying stakes of her current reality. It was a moment that genuinely broke my heart.
It was very heavy.
We always view Carrie as this unshakable boss. She is the CEO of a sprawling multi-million-dollar restaurant franchise, Brick and Spoon. And she reveals that the empire is actively crumbling.
The veneer of reality TV wealth cracks, and the stark financial reality is exposed.
She confesses that two highly anticipated potential buyers for the business just unexpectedly pull out of negotiations. She is staring down the barrel of a reality where she might be forced to permanently close her doors in less than 7 days.
7 days.
If that happens, she will be left holding hundreds of thousands of dollars in unresolved debt. She describes waking up every single morning to an inbox demanding $100,000 decisions. She is a CEO who is actively drowning, desperately trying to bail water out of a sinking ship. And while she is suffocating under this immense existential and financial terror, her husband is complaining about the firmness of a couch and laughing with the group downstairs.
That revelation fundamentally reframes every interaction she has had on this trip. She is not genuinely fighting about the proximity to a Marriott. She is fighting for a shred of control in a life that is rapidly accelerating toward total financial ruin.
Exactly.
When your nervous system is continuously flooded by six-figure crisis management, your partner's aloof, unbothered demeanor does not translate as them keeping the peace. It translates as abandonment.
Exactly. She just needs him to step into the trench, pick up a shovel, and carry some of the emotional weight. And his refusal to engage feels like a betrayal. It is a profoundly sad dynamic.
Which naturally transitions us into analyzing the power structures of this discussion. It is time to determine who utilized their capital effectively and who squandered it. Let's start with Boss Babe of the Week. Who demonstrated the most command and why?
My selection has to be Selena. She navigated a minefield with absolute unwavering grace. This entire getaway was explicitly designed to center her, to provide a luxurious escape from the crushing stress of wedding planning.
And it was completely ruined.
Instead, her celebration was entirely hijacked and overshadowed by Carrie and Matt's relentless marital combat. Yet Selena never threw a tantrum. She didn't demand the spotlight. She absorbed the love when it was offered at Club V12. She radiated support for the other women, and crucially, she demonstrated true, decisive leadership by physically intervening to save the collective from Leticia's deep-fried sausage grease fire.
She did save breakfast.
That is the definition of a boss babe. She protects the peace of the group, and she protects the breakfast meat.
A defensible choice, certainly. But my Boss Babe of the Week is undeniably, unequivocally Marie.
You were giving it to her for the soda substitution.
I'm giving it to her partially for possessing the utter, unshakable confidence to demand a mass-market carbonated beverage in lieu of a curated salad course at a high-end private dinner.
It was iconic, I admit.
That requires a level of self-assurance and disregard for peer pressure that I can only aspire to achieve. But, more substantively, I am selecting her for how she managed her professional narrative this week. There were ugly, persistent, and highly damaging rumors circulating within the collective that her businesses had permanently shuttered.
Those rumors were nasty.
Instead of succumbing to the emotional weight of the gossip, crying in a corner, or screaming defensively, Marie stood entirely grounded. She incorporated her truth into the conversation and firmly, surgically shut the rumors down with cold, hard facts. She refused to let the collective's narrative control her reality. She seized the narrative and dictated the terms.
I genuinely love that analysis. Marie is impenetrable when it comes to other people's opinions. Okay, moving to our next debate. Who started it? We have to dissect the most significant point of friction on the trip. The basement room assignment. Where does the ultimate culpability lie?
Oh, this should be good.
I will plant my flag on this hill right now. Latrice started it, 100%. As the designated host, she operated with malicious forethought.
I don't know about malicious.
It was. Assigning a married couple in their 40s to a transparent basement closet featuring a deflated sofa is not an oversight. It is petty, premeditated revenge for a bunk bed incident that occurred months ago on the Gulf Coast. She explicitly weaponized the concept of Southern hospitality to execute a vendetta.
She was just evening the score.
You do not invite a peer to a celebratory gathering and intentionally orchestrate their humiliation. Leticia owes Carrie and Matt a massive public apology.
I vehemently, fundamentally disagree with that assessment. Carrie escalated the situation beyond the point of no return. Yes, Leticia set the bait. She laid the trap. But Carrie made the conscious, active decision to swallow the hook, the line, and the sinker.
Because she was cornered.
Instead of directing her fury where it belonged, at Leticia for the architectural insult at the macroeconomic factors destroying her business, or at Marlene for the maternal overstepping Carrie publicly, repeatedly humiliated her husband. She humiliated a man who drove 6.5 hours across state lines solely to support her presence on this trip.
That is true, but
She treated Matt as the primary enemy when he was the only individual offering a tangible, logical solution, relocating to a hotel. Carrie owes Matt a profound apology for sacrificing his dignity on the altar of reality TV group dynamics.
Leticia lit the match. If the room isn't a closet, none of this happens.
Leticia lit a match, and Carrie chose to pour a gallon of Leticia's cooking oil directly onto the flame.
Oh my gosh, we're at a complete philosophical impasse on this one. Let's pivot to the friendship check. Where are the alliances strong and where are they crumbling?
Go ahead.
I believe the strongest friendship on display this week was actually the macro entity of the collective itself, specifically during the sequence at Club V12. For those few hours, surrounded by the oversized cardboard faces and the sparklers, I loved watching the women actively choose to put aside their deep-seated personal vendettas to genuinely uplift Selena.
It was a rare moment of peace.
It was a potent reminder why they formed a collective in the first place. When they decide to operate as a unified front of support, they are unstoppable.
It was a fleeting, alcohol-induced moment of unity, but I will concede it was effective. Conversely, the most fragile friendship is undoubtedly the alliance between Leticia and Leticia.
Oh, completely. It is hanging by a thread.
They maintained a facade of cordiality this weekend out of logistical necessity. They had to co-host the trip. But the underlying tension radiating from their past divisions is palpable in every interaction. You can practically feel the tectonic plates shifting beneath their forced smiles.
Oh, for sure.
Their unresolved issues are creating this invisible pressure cooker that constantly forces the rest of the Belles to awkwardly assess alliances and pick sides. That fragile truth is going to violently shatter the moment they cross the state line back into Mississippi.
Speaking of Leticia, she has earned a dual title this week. I am officially naming her the biggest peacemaker.
Wait. The individual you just forcefully accused of initiating the most explosive conflict of the entire weekend.
Yes, because human behavior is brilliantly contradictory. Despite engineering the basement drama, she is also the singular reason Leticia and Glenn experienced their marital breakthrough.
I'll give you that.
She successfully facilitated the husband swap mediation that saved their communication. Furthermore, when Carrie stormed out of the kitchen mid-meltdown, it was Leticia who pursued her, offered a shoulder, and created the safe space for Carrie to finally vocalize the terrifying truth about her failing business. Leticia is a deeply, surprisingly effective peacemaker when she chooses to deploy that skill.
Which perfectly positions her for my counter title. Biggest pot stirrer. Leticia is playing three-dimensional chess while everyone else is playing checkers.
It really is.
She is only able to act as the peacemaker because she first acts as the pot stirrer. She deliberately assigned a highly stressed, financially drowning CEO to a pull-out couch, knowing with absolute certainty it would trigger a psychological break.
You think she knew?
Of course. And then she performed complete shock when that decision predictably ruined the weekend's equilibrium. She actively manufactured the disaster so she could subsequently swoop in and claim the role of the savior. It is masterful, Machiavellian reality TV producing, executed from the inside.
That is such a dark, toxic read of the situation, but I am terrified that you are entirely correct. I cannot look away from her strategy. This sets us up perfectly for our final debate. Next week's predictions. What is coming down the pipeline for the collective?
What's your theory?
My biggest prediction centers on the impending nuptials. I foresee Selena's wedding planning slamming into a massive, unavoidable wall of drama. She managed to secure a pocket of peace this weekend in Atlanta, but as the actual calendar date approaches, the gravitational pull of all this group infighting is going to inevitably overshadow her moment.
It's bound to happen.
Someone is going to misbehave at a bridal shower or launch an accusation at the rehearsal dinner. The peace cannot hold.
That is practically a mathematical certainty in this genre. My prediction focuses on the next interpersonal explosion. I predict that Carrie and Latrice are going to engage in total, unmitigated warfare.
But they just shared that incredibly vulnerable, sweet moment in the bedroom where Carrie cried on her shoulder.
Exactly. Carrie was operating from a place of deep vulnerability and exhaustion. But once she returns to Jackson, secures a full night of sleep on a proper, supportive mattress, and her central nervous system regulates, clarity will hit her.
Oh, you think she'll realize?
She will fully realize that Latrice deliberately set her up in that basement closet to orchestrate her public humiliation. The gratitude for the shoulder to cry on will evaporate instantly, and the full force of her CEO rage will lock onto Latrice as the primary target. It will be a scorched earth campaign.
I am bracing myself for the impact of that collision. Seeking a slightly more optimistic note, my prediction for the biggest success story goes to Leticia and Glenn. I genuinely deeply hope their communication breakthrough was foundational and not just a temporary reprieve.
We can only hope.
I want them to review the post-nup paperwork with clear heads, sign it peacefully to protect their shared empire, and move forward without constantly weaponizing the threat of divorce. I am truly rooting for their evolution.
And finally, my one completely chaotic, purely speculative theory for the upcoming discussions. I believe Marie is going to attend the next highly formal, catered brunch event carrying a full, family-sized bucket of deep-fried chicken, explicitly to spite whoever attempts to serve her a leafy green vegetable.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
She is fully leaning into her anti-wellness, pro-carbonation persona, and I am entirely here to witness that level of commitment to a bit.
I would empty my bank account to witness that level of petty brilliance. A greasy bucket of poultry placed delicately next to a crystal mimosa flute. Well, Snark Squad, that concludes our exhaustive breakdown of the absolute chaos Belle Collective delivered this week. Now, we turn the floor over to you. We need to hear your takes to validate our own spiraling.
We need backup on these opinions.
Who earned your title for Both Babe of the Week? Was it Selena protecting the integrity of the breakfast, or Marie demanding a Coca-Cola? Which friendship alliance are you actually rooting to survive the season? And most critically, what is one petty hill you will happily, stubbornly die on? Drop your thoughts in the comments or send us a message. Just please, out of respect for our time and sanity, ensure it is not an audio file exceeding 2 minutes.
Do not test the structural integrity of my boundaries. And while you are reflecting on the sheer liability of hosting 20 people in a residential space, remember to subscribe to the show, leave us a 5-star review, and share this podcast with another reality TV-loving babe who desperately needs their weekly dose of Southern shade.
As we look back at the smoldering wreckage of Matt and Carrie's Atlanta getaway, it forces a sobering reflection. Is the foundation of our own adulthood really as solid as we project it to be? Or are we all just one deflated pull-out couch away from a total, uncontrollable meltdown? Stay fabulous, stay ambitious, and we'll see you on the Snark side.